countdown continues for the US presidential and congressional elections set for November 3rd. Donald Trump, one of the most controversial presidents in the American history, is facing off against Democratic challenger Joe Biden. So, how is the race going? Which candidate is in the lead? The US has a unique system of choosing its president. Elections take place every 4 years on the first Tuesday of November. The public vote for electors who then reflect the presidential candidate they support. The number of electors to determine the president in 50 states is 538. For a candidate to win a presidential election, he or she needs an absolute majority or 270 electors. The candidate with the most votes in every state wins all of its electors. This principle is known as winner takes all. The number of electors is determined according to the population of each state. The states with the most electors are California, Texas, Florida, and New York. States such as Alaska, Wyoming, Vermont have only 3 electors each. 74-year-old Trump, who ended Democratic Party era in 2016, is again the Republican candidate in 2020. During his 4 years in the office, Trump has had an exceptional profile, especially with his tweets, not traditionally presidential or diplomatic, often even rude. Trump's election slogan was "Make America Great Again."
We will make America great again.
Employment rose during his tenure. The unemployment rate dropped to the lowest levels in 50 years until the COVID-19 outbreak in spring 2020. As the pandemic turned employment rates to negative, the steady economic growth seen until the second quarter of 2020 was turned upside down. Trump has been heavily criticized for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. He is accused of failing to take necessary measures. Out of 900,000 deaths worldwide to date, nearly 200,000 of them have been in the US. Challenging Trump is a 77-year-old Joe Biden, who served 2 terms as vice president under Barack Obama. Biden, who served 7 terms as senator before assisting Obama for 2 terms, is a very experienced politician. His key advantage is his ability to win black and female voters.
...2016'daki aday Hillary Clinton'a karşı olan tepki Biden'a karşı yok. Biden'ın büyük oranda pozitif bir imajı var. Geçen seçimlerden farklı olarak Sanders'la Clinton arasında bir uzlaşma olmamıştı. Sanders seçmenleri gidip Clinton'a oy vermemişti. Bu seçimde Demokrat Parti'nin ciddi bir kenetlenme içerisinde olduğunu görüyoruz.
The two candidates differ on many critical issues. When and how the economy will enter normalization process during the pandemic, tax breaks for large corporations, race-based tensions, and the Obama-era healthcare reform, also known as Obamacare. The candidates' war of words is in full swing.
Joe Biden's agenda is made in China. My agenda is made in the USA.
His entire presence has been a gift to Putin, but this is beyond the pale. It's a betrayal of the most sacred duty we bear as a nation.
Each presidential candidate chooses their vice presidential running mate. The function of the vice president is very important because the person who takes over the office if the president dies or resigns is the vice president. Trump's vice president is Mike Pence, a steadfast U.S. conservative. Pence is a former congressman and one-time governor of the state of Indiana, a traditional Republican stronghold. Pence is one of the architects of the 2016 election victory, which some described as a surprise, and also has the support of the US's Christian evangelical base. His views on matters such as immigration and abortion are very strict. Biden, on the other hand, selected a vice presidential candidate who is the complete opposite of Mike Pence, Kamala Harris, whose father is Jamaican and mother is Indian. 55-year-old California Senator Harris is a former lawyer and a state attorney general. Harris is seen as likely to encourage more black voters to cast ballots. If the Democratic ticket wins, Harris will be the first female and first black vice president in the U.S. history.
It's a small gamble, but it's also a logical gamble. The side of the Democratic Party that I mentioned previously, it was represented mostly by Bernie Sanders. They originally, of course, are unhappy with Kamala Harris because of her record as Attorney General in the state of California on police matters. They assume that the reaction inside of the Democratic Party, amongst all of the voters that see themselves as Democratic voters, the reaction against Trump will be much stronger than any sort of criticism of Kamala Harris.
While the presidential race is nearing the final stretch, the competition in the polls remains fierce. Since Biden effectively captured the Democratic Party's presidential nomination, his poll numbers have been rising steadily. Yet, in 2016, Hillary Clinton also consistently topped the polls but lost the electoral vote on election day.
Going into election day, it looked like Hillary Clinton would win pretty easily. But of course, this is not what happened. We got a lesson in predicting elections, and so we're being much more cautious now about making grand statements about who's going to win the presidential election.
In US politics, places that are stronghold of Democrats are referred to as blue states, while areas in red are Republican strongholds. It is the swing states that will determine the election outcome. These states see a fierce struggle between the two parties in each election, and the results can go either way. In states such as Florida, Michigan, Iowa, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, the winning side gains a great advantage in the nationwide elections. According to the latest polls, the competition in these states is fierce. Even in Texas, a longtime Republican stronghold, the race is more competitive than it had ever been in many years. The COVID-19 outbreak may have a big impact on the elections, specifically in the method of voting. In fact, due to the pandemic, a record number of voters are expected to cast ballots by mail. Out of 215 million voters, 180 million have the right to vote by mail. Trump claims the voting by mail is ripe for fraud.
Oy verme eğer posta yoluyla daha fazla gerçekleşirse daha fazla genç nüfus, daha fazla demokrat sandık başına gitmiş olacak. Bunu engellemeye çalışıyor başkanım.
The long-time US tradition of televised debates is a distinctive feature of US politics. The first of 3 televised debates will be on September 29, where the 2 candidates will try to make their case before the eyes of the world. The countdown for the election has now begun. The final weeks of the presidential race are sure to see surprising developments.